Okay, so I guess we'll start around 3:05. Is that okay with everybody?
Yeah, that
Okay,
works for us.
sounds good. So how's everybody's day going? Hope you guys are good.
Good. Excited. We're excited to try this case again.
I'm excited to see it, so I can't wait.
Do you want us to sort of like explain to everyone what's going to happen or like just what to expect or?
I think like a rundown of the case itself would be pretty nice. Because I think that there may or may not be students who are in law currently and stuff. So I think that if you did like a basic breakdown of it, it would really help.
Yeah, absolutely. So hello to everyone here. My name is Sebastian Aviles, and I am the VP of Panther Mock Trial. So basically what we're doing today, or what we were asked to do today, is basically a mini mock trial. What that is it's a competition format where you have a case packet, so like an entire case, a fictional case, that you try in front of a mock jury. And so the case changes from year to year. And this past year's case was regarding pesticide. More specifically, for those of you that are aware, it was an intentional tort, so a civil case regarding battery. And what happened was, a very brief synopsis, and you'll see more throughout trial, is that a girl went to a winery and she died. And unfortunately, her mother-in-law is being accused of poisoning the pesticide and is now being sued for wrongful death. So the case this year was pretty interesting, and we've had the case the entire year. And so what you're going to see basically is a condensed version of the trial. Like we're going to call witnesses, where you're going to hear openings and closings. So if you have any questions, feel free to ask them, drop them in the chat, and we'll be answering them throughout. And we'll also have a Q&A session at the end where you might want to ask questions about the trial in particular, experience in trial law, or what it's like to do mock trial competitively, or any questions you might have.
Yeah, I mean, that sounds amazing. And I'm so happy to have all of you here with me. On behalf of SGA, I thank all of you so much for being here and for taking this opportunity. And yeah, I think with that said, we can go ahead and start. Hi, everybody. My name is Sabrina Kanata. I'm the Secretary of Student Engagement for SGA. A little bit about my position is I am basically the advocate for the student body on creating events for all of you to be engaged in our community. So a little project that I've been working on for a while is our career simulation series. And right here, right now, you're a part of one of our first events that is a part of this series. So I'm super excited to have all of you here, both the mock trial team and for any students, and also some SGA representatives. I'm super excited for this. And yeah, I mean, thank you so much to everybody who is here. I hope you enjoy the event, and I'm super excited to see this case as it progresses. You can go ahead and introduce yourself, Panther Mock Trial Team.
Cool. Hi, my name is Alexis. I'm president of Panther Mock Trial this year, or outgoing, I guess. But it's been a lot of fun with this team and running through this case that you're about to see, like our vice president just explained. So I'll let the rest of the team introduce themselves. And also, I guess what you'll be doing, just to kind of differentiate attorneys and witnesses. I'll be a defense attorney.
Just to go really briefly, once again, I'm Sebastian, and I will be a plaintiff attorney. So I'm the one suing, basically. I'm one of the people suing.
Hi, my name is Persian Nasri. I'm the treasurer of Panther Mock Trial, and today I'll be playing the defense attorney. And I've been doing mock trial for a year, and I love it a lot.
Hi guys, my name is Daniel, and that's Max. I will be on the plaintiff side, meaning I'm suing the defendant. And yeah, I hope you guys enjoy it. Max, you can take it.
Thank you for that, Daniel. I appreciate it. Hi, everybody. My name is Max Salazar. It's a pleasure to meet you. Doing mock trial for the last 2 years here at FIU. It's been an amazing experience. This year I was able to play both sides, plaintiff and defense, as a witness for the plaintiff and an attorney for the defense. But today I'm going to be playing a witness, and I hope you guys enjoy.
Hi guys, I'm Samantha. I am the secretary for Panther Mock Trial. I've been in the organization for the past 2 years now, and I love it. I'm going to be playing the defendant today, Harper Martini, who's the mother on trial for the pesticide poisoning, and I'm also going to be playing her daughter, Casey, on plaintiff.
Hi guys, my name's Amanda. I'm currently CSO rep for Panther Mock Trial. I'm very happy to be here going into my second year next year, and I'll be playing a defense witness.
All right, so with introductions, I guess we can just start the trial. So for anyone who doesn't know, normally in trial, you have a lot of pre-trial matters, but today we're going to be skipping that because that usually takes a while. We're going to be going straight to opening statements, which is when both parties lay out their case in front of the jury. So plaintiff proceeds first with their opening statement.
Good afternoon, Your Honor. Permission to deliver my opening statement.
Yeah, please go ahead. And if everyone can turn their camera on speaker view, I think that'd be better for the speeches.
Even acts of love have legal boundaries. Love is the most powerful emotion. It can inspire beauty, change, creativity. But it can also destroy. It has the power to blur our reality, the power to put others in danger. And when that happens, when it grows out of control, sometimes people act beyond reason. Sometimes people act beyond the law. But even acts of love have legal boundaries. And today, you'll learn about Harper Martini, a defendant who let the love for her daughter get out of control. In fact, from the moment her daughter, Casey Soto, was born, the defendant's entire life revolved around that child, her number one priority. The defendant was not like your typical parent. She was controlling, she was manipulative. And you will learn she would do anything to keep the daughter she loved close. Now, one day, Casey introduces her mother to her one true love, Genesis Petrillo. But to the defendant, he was nothing but a wedge between her and her daughter, a wedge that would soon become permanent. And when Casey announced her marriage with Genesis Petrillo, the defendant began to lose control. So she tried to compensate that by controlling the wedding preparations. She tried pushing her daughter to date anyone but Genesis, even saying words like, "You're all I have left." And one day, under the desperation of losing her child, the defendant bribes Genesis with $300,000 of all things to get out of their lives. But that didn't work. And when the defendant discovered her child would soon be moving right across the grove, that pushed her over the edge. She needed to act quickly to keep her daughter close, and she did just that. On the night before the wedding, when she should have been toasting to her daughter's happy future, she was formulating a plan. And under the guise of a gift, she presented Genesis with a poisoned bottle of wine. And a few hours later, Genesis was dead. Even acts of love have legal boundaries. And that is why, members of the jury, as the plaintiff in today's trial, it is our job to prove to you by a preponderance of the evidence that just more than likely than not, the defendant committed civil battery. But we're not just going to stop there. No, we're actually going to prove three things to you. First, we're going to prove the defendant purposefully put pesticides in the bottle of wine she gave Genesis. And then we'll prove that when she put pesticides, she did it fully intending to harm Genesis. And finally, we'll prove that Genesis died as a result. So now I want to take you through the testimonies you'll hear today, starting with our first witness. First, you'll hear from Miss Casey Soto, the defendant's daughter, Genesis' widowed fiance. She'll tell you about her mother's overbearing parenting and about the voicemail that pushed the defendant to her breaking point, the voicemail that told the defendant her child would be gone forever. And then you'll hear about Mr. Lonnie Paris, an investigative journalist who will show you the handwritten note from the defendant threatening and bribing Genesis to get out of Casey's life. And he'll tell you how he witnessed the defendant grab a bottle of wine sitting next to a half-empty canister of pesticides and give that bottle to Genesis. Again, just a few hours before he passed away from pesticide poisoning. Members of the jury, even acts of love have legal boundaries. And that is why at the end of today's trial, my co-counsel, Mr. Aviles, is going to come before you and remind you exactly what happened. Remind you that even acts of love have legal boundaries. He'll ask you to come to a verdict, but it is the only reasonable verdict that the law and the evidence will demand. Hold the defendant accountable for what happened to Genesis. Find the defendant liable. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Simon. Mr. Nasri, when you're ready.
Yes, Your Honor. No knowledge, no act, not liable. We understand what happened to Genesis was a tragedy, a mistake that could have been avoided. When something like this happens, it's understandable to want answers, someone to hold accountable, someone to blame. That's what the plaintiff is doing today. When the plaintiff came before you today, they chose to blame one person and just one person alone for the events of June 7th, 2019. But members of the jury, with no knowledge and no act, that person is not liable. Now, I want to talk to you about that person. Just a moment ago, the plaintiff came before you and said the word defendant 15 times. Now, throughout the course of today's trial, you will hear them say that word defendant over and over again. But behind that word defendant is a person. She's a daughter. She's a mother. And her name is Harper Martini. She's not perfect. She's made mistakes. But today, you will see that she did not harm Genesis Petrillo. I want to tell you a story. It's June 7th, 2019. Peony Estates is in full swing as they prepare to host the wedding of Harper Martini's only child, Casey. Now, Harper and Casey's fiancée, Genesis, never had the greatest relationship. But Harper tries to make amends. She presents Genesis Peony Estates' finest bottle of wine, a peace offering meant to bring them together. But what Miss Martini does not know is that this peace offering is contaminated with a lethal dose of pesticide. Genesis unknowingly consumes this deadly cocktail and is rushed to the hospital. At 9:27 a.m. the next morning, Genesis passes away. Now, how did this happen? You're going to hear from Blair Osborne, the wedding planner at Peony Estates. You will learn that she had used Peony Estates as a venue since 2015. That in all of her time at Peony Estates, she never once saw Harper contaminate a bottle of wine, never once saw Harper harm Genesis. And then after that, you'll hear from Harper Martini, the owner of Peony Estates. She will come before you and she will tell you that she is horrified by her team members' conduct, that she had no knowledge of any contaminated wine, neither would she go out of her way to harm Genesis. No knowledge, no act, not liable. The plaintiff has decided to accuse Harper of civil battery. Now, the plaintiff is the one with the burden of proof in today's case. It is their responsibility, and only their responsibility, to prove to you each and every element of civil battery by a preponderance of the evidence. They have to prove to you that Harper committed an act against Genesis, that she intended to cause harm through this act, and that Genesis suffered harm as a result. Members of the jury, they will fail to meet their burden because they will not be able to provide you with any evidence, any videotape, or any recording that shows Miss Martini do any of these three things. No knowledge, no act, not liable. That's why by the end of today's trial, my co-counsel, Ms. Phelps, will come before you. She will ask you to find the only reasonable verdict, the only just verdict. A verdict that does not punish Harper Martini for an act she did not commit. She will ask you for a verdict of not liable. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Nasri. If you had your view on speaker view, you can go ahead and change that back for gallery view for the examinations. Plaintiff, call your first witness.
Your Honor, the plaintiff calls Ms. Casey Soda to the stand. Please introduce yourself to the members of the jury.
Hi, my name is Casey Soda.
Ms. Soto, where are you from?
I was born here in Midlands in '94, and I've lived here basically my whole life. But after Genesis passed away, I couldn't stand to be here anymore, so I left.
Where did you go?
France. Genesis and I always talked about moving there after the wedding, but he never got the chance to.
Ms. Soto, if it's all right with you, I'd like to talk about Genesis. Who was he?
He was my best friend, my fiance. We met back in college and hit it off immediately. We had been dating for 6 years when he proposed. I had never been happier.
What happened to him?
He passed away the night before our wedding. I read in his death certificate that he died from pesticide poisoning. I know my mom is being accused of poisoning him. The state is suing her, and now I'm stuck in the middle of this mess.
Ms. Soto, you mentioned the defendant. I want to talk about her. What was your relationship like with your mom?
She raised me all by herself. My dad died when I was really little, so it's just been me and my mom ever since, just the two of us.
And what was growing up with the defendant like?
She was a great mom. She always found a way to make it to every school play or soccer game, you name it. But she would constantly be telling me that it was all she had left. And I know she meant well, but sometimes she was just too much to handle, especially when Genesis was involved.
What do you mean?
Well, I feel like my mom was always making backhanded comments about Genesis and never approved of him. They were always arguing or yelling. They never got along. But I feel like the final straw for my mom was when Genesis told her that we
Objection,
were.
Your Honor. Speculation as to what the final straw for her mother was.
Okay, plaintiff.
Yes, Your Honor. The witness is not speculating, as she is not testifying to the defendant's state of mind. As the witness testified, it seemed to her that it was the final straw for her mother. The witness has lived with her mother for decades, has been with her mother through good times and bad, has seen her mother's reaction to various partners. And the witness is simply testifying to her rationally based perception under Rule 701. Therefore, Your Honor, this is not speculation.
Do you want to respond, defense?
Yes, Your Honor. Unless the witness's mother told her this is the last straw, it doesn't seem like a rational perception to assume that one individual event would have been the last straw to destroying a relationship or something of that sort.
If I may respond on those grounds briefly, Your Honor.
Okay.
As I previously mentioned, the witness has seen her mother's behavior throughout multiple years, Your Honor, and specifically when she began bringing around Mr. Genesis Petrillo. And so she witnessed the deterioration of their relationship firsthand, and it appeared to her, based on her rationally based perception, that this moment was the moment when their relationship finally broke, following that extended period of deterioration. She's not testifying as to the defendant's state of mind, but rather to her rationally based perception.
So I'm willing to hear you lay the foundation. What I mean by that is Ms. Soto can testify onto the record specifically what she was observing that she perceived to be the last straw, what her reaction was, what she did following whatever action was being discussed. So I'm going to sustain the objection. You can lay the foundation and get it out that way.
Yes, Your Honor. Ms. Soto, I want to talk about the moments before Genesis told your mother that you guys were moving to France. Can you briefly describe what you saw as their relationship between Genesis and your mother?
Well, before she told her about our move to France, they would fight sometimes, but just generally kind of avoid each other.
Based on your observations, how did this change following that voicemail?
After she left that, he left that voicemail, they would fight pretty much every time they saw each other.
Ms. Soto, I want to talk about the voicemail itself. When did Genesis leave that voicemail?
It was on May 11th of 2019. I remember because it was our one last celebration before the wedding with our entire wedding party there to celebrate. Genesis decided to call my mom and ended up leaving her this voicemail that she played for me later on, telling her about all our plans to move to France.
Would you recognize a transcript of that voicemail if I were to show it to you today?
Yes.
Your Honor, permission to post Exhibit 8 onto the screen pursuant to Stipulation 3. This document has already been pre-admitted into evidence. Ms. Soto, what are we looking at right now?
This is the transcript of the voicemail that Genesis left for my mom that night.
Is it a fair and accurate representation of the voicemail that you heard?
Yes.
Ms. Soto, what did Genesis say in this voicemail?
Well, his speech was a little slurred, so it was a bit hard to understand, but I do remember him saying, Casey, me, our future kids, your grandkids, we're all going to live our lives as far away from you as possible. You'll die alone in that sad place and no one will care.
Now, how did your mother react when she found this out?
She yelled at Genesis and told him he better reconsider his plans. Her face was red and she just screamed that whether Genesis stayed with me, moved to France, or ended up 6 feet under, she didn't care, but I was staying in Midlands.
Mr. I want to clarify something. Why didn't you tell the defendant that you were moving to France instead of Genesis?
Truthfully, I was scared to tell her. My mom always told me that I was all she had left and she wanted me to take over the family business. I didn't think that she would take the news well, and I didn't want to think about what she might have done to stop us.
Ms. Soto, to your knowledge, did the defendant and Genesis ever try to work out their differences?
Not that I know of. The only time I saw any attempts was the night of our rehearsal dinner.
What happened that night?
Well, I thought everything was going well. People were talking and giving speeches. And then around 10 p.m., my mom got on stage and made this big show of giving Genesis this bottle of Cara wine and said, "This is for you."
What happened after the defendant gave Genesis that bottle of wine?
Genesis poured himself a glass.
Did you drink the Cara wine?
No, I didn't.
Did you see anyone else at that wedding drink the Cara wine?
No.
Mr. Soto, what did you do after seeing Genesis drink the wine?
I was exhausted and I wanted to get some sleep before the wedding. So I kissed Genesis goodnight and I headed to my room. And that was the last time I saw him alive.
What happened the next morning?
I woke up, put on my dress, curled my hair, and did my makeup and waited for Genesis to show. And then my friend Angel came running into my room and told me that Genesis had fallen into a coma.
What did you do?
I was in shock. I ran to the car as fast as I could and drove to the hospital.
Did you get to the hospital in time?
No. Genesis had died 5 minutes before I'd gotten there from pesticide poisoning. It didn't make sense. I ate and drank literally everything Genesis had. The only thing that I can think of that I didn't was the bottle of wine my mother gave to him.
Thank you. Your Honor, I have no further questions.
Ms. Phelps, when you're ready, you can begin your cross-examination.
Yes, Your Honor. Ms. Soto, I understand it may be difficult to discuss these events. I just need to ask you a few questions. It was no secret that your fiance Genesis and your mother Harper didn't have the greatest relationship.
No, they were always fighting.
At the time of the rehearsal dinner, you and Genesis had been together for 7 years.
Yeah, we had.
And from what you could see, Genesis wasn't fond of Harper.
No, like I said, they were always fighting. They never really got along from the beginning, honestly.
But throughout those 7 years, you've never seen your mother hit Genesis.
No, never seen my mother hit him.
Shove Genesis.
No.
Or cause any physical harm to Genesis in any way.
Objection, Your Honor. Improper character evidence.
What's the character trait?
A character trait of peacefulness or nonviolence.
Ms. Phelps, your response.
Yes, Your Honor, I'm not using this for action in conformity therewith. I'm simply just trying to lay that this witness has never seen their mother be violent in any way. I'm not trying to elicit the character trait that Harper is peaceful and always has been.
May I respond on those grounds, Your Honor? Your Honor, we're not alleging that the character trait is specifically a peacefulness in general, but rather a peacefulness and an unwillingness to act in a physical way. As Your Honor knows, pursuant to Rule 404A1, character evidence may not be used to show propensity and action conformity therewith. Ms. Phelps is using this evidence to show the jury that because the defendant had not physically harmed Genesis in the past, she was not likely or would not physically harm Genesis in the present. And therefore, Your Honor, this violates 404A1 and is inadmissible.
Do you have anything to add, Ms. Phelps?
Yes, Your Honor. I believe opposing counsel has opened the door for this on direct examination when they decided to discuss the past relationship between Ms. Martini and Genesis.
How?
During direct examination, opposing counsel went into how her mother has never been a violent person towards her or towards her fiance, and I believe I'm just clarifying that for the record on cross.
Mr. Aviles, is that how you remember the direct examination?
No, Your Honor. While we did inquire into the specific relationship between Harper Martini and Genesis Petrillo, that went to motive, Your Honor. We were not opening the door for character to show propensity and action conformity therewith, but rather to show a series of events in which the defendant's relationship deteriorated to the point where she decided to take action and kill Genesis Petrillo.
Okay, I'm going to sustain the objection.
Yes, Your Honor. Ms. Soto, on June 7th, 2019, your mother.
I want to add, sorry, Ms. Phelps. I'm only sustaining and striking from the record the question that you asked. Mr. Ovilus had an untimely objection, so those questions that you asked before that one, those are on the record, just for clarification.
Yes, Your Honor. Ms. Soto, on the evening of June 7th, 2019, your mother stood up in front of the entire wedding party.
Yeah,
She called up Genesis to the front of the room.
yeah, to give him the bottle of wine.
Right, your mother was holding a bottle of Cara wine.
I believe like caterer was handing out the gifts exactly, but she made a speech about it. Yeah.
Harper told Genesis, "This is for you."
Yeah, she did.
You'd agree with me, this whole exchange was no secret.
No, it was at a rehearsal dinner.
Ms. Soto, just to be clear, throughout the entire time of the wedding rehearsal, you don't know who else drank from the bottle of wine, correct?
No, like I said, I went to bed around 10 p.m. to get some rest before the big day the next day.
You never saw Genesis leave?
No,
You don't know what else Genesis did, ate, or drank that night?
no, like I said, I kissed him goodnight and I went to bed.
Thank you, Ms. Soto. I have no further questions, Your Honor.
Mr. Aviles, any redirect?
No, Your Honor. I ask that the witness be excused.
Okay, thank you, Ms. Soto. You're excused. Plaintiff, call your next witness.
Your Honor, at this time, the plaintiff would like to call Mr. Lonnie Paris to the stand. Mr. Paris, can you hear me all right?
Yes, I can.
Well, please introduce yourself to the jury.
Well, good afternoon. It's a pleasure to meet you all. My name is Lonnie Paris.
What do you do for a living, Mr. Paris?
Well, I'm an undercover journalist. My job at its core is about exposing the truth wherever that may be. I guess you can kind of consider me to be a sort of impartial storyteller.
How did your career in journalism begin?
Well, while I was at grad school, I lined up a job with Blitz News Network. A week after graduation, I was reporting from the back of a Humvee sandwiched between 8 US troops in the middle of Iraq. It was by far the most humbling experience that I've ever had, and honestly, it lent me a great deal of perspective.
Are you still working with Blitz News?
No, not anymore. I'd worked there for 20-something years before we had to cut ties in 2017.
And why did you guys cut ties?
Long story short, I refused to post these half-baked stories for the sake of clickbait. And because of that, my segments didn't get the numbers that Blitz had wanted, and they had to let me go. But to be quite honest, even if I could do it all over again, I wouldn't change a single thing.
Mr. Paris, how, if at all, did this affect your career?
Following that, I dabbled with the idea of retirement, but it just wasn't for me. A few months into it, I was just itching to leave the house, and now look at me. But what I did is I started a blog and did a few freelance investigations just to keep my skills sharp.
Well, I'd actually like to talk to you about one of those investigations. Have you heard of Peony Estates?
Yes, I'm familiar. I began investigating Peony Estates for improperly storing pesticides in July of 2018.
What happened in July of 2018?
Well, on July 13th of 2018, I took a tour of the winery just to scope it out. And that was actually when I met Harper Martini and the rest of the staff at Peony Estates. I kept visiting the property about twice a month until I was able to gain access to the winery's bottling area.
Did you find anything there?
Yes and no. I found a few empty canisters of bug-off pesticide in the back rooms, but it was really during my last few visits that I made some noteworthy discoveries.
What discoveries?
Well, I visited the winery again on May 8th of 2019, and I slipped away into the bottling area. And that was when I found a bottle of wine that I had never seen before at Peony Estates. It was labeled car wine. Then on June 7th, again, there it was, a bottle of 2019 car. It was the only bottle being stored in that entire room, and I'm almost certain that it's the same exact bottle that I'd seen just the month before.
Objection, speculation as to that being the same bottle.
Okay, Mr. Simon.
Your Honor, as per Rule 701, a witness may testify in the form of an opinion so long as it is based on the rationally based perception. And Your Honor, the witness already stated that they had never seen any other different bottle at Peony Estates during their visit. So therefore, the only conjunction they can make is that has been the same bottle throughout.
Mr. Nasri, do you agree with Mr. Simon's understanding of the rule?
Yes, Your Honor, pursuant to Rule 702, a lay witness may testify to that rationally based perception, Your Honor.
May
But
they
this,
testify in the form of an opinion?
yes, Your Honor. Well, Your Honor, 701 specifically says that a lay witness may testify to that rationally based perceptions.
Can they testify in the form of an opinion?
Yes, Your Honor, so long as within the realm of their perceptions, yes.
Okay. And okay. And what is your response to his argument?
Yes, Your Honor, opposing counsel has failed to lay sufficient foundation that this witness may determine that the car ball when they saw now was the exact same ball they saw previously. They may testify to what they saw, Your Honor, not what they believe.
Mr. Simon.
Yes, Your Honor. I believe my witness said that he was certain it was the only bottle stored in the room, and the same exact bottle. Again, they're testifying in the form of an opinion based on their experience witnessing a bottle of Cara wine in the same location at the exact time and in the exact same room for every time that they visited Peony Estates. As per Rule 701, this is admissible.
Were these two separate times that he saw the bottle?
Yes, Your Honor.
Okay. I'm going to sustain the objection, and feel free if you think you can lay the foundation through Mr. Paris, how he knows it to be the same bottle, but without that foundation, it's going to be sustained.
Well, Mr. Perez, why would you think this was the same bottle?
Well, you see, on my initial visit of May 8th, 2019, I saw a bottle of car wine sitting by itself in the bottling area. Then again, I came back on June 7th, and again, it was a bottle of car wine, the only bottle being held in that entire room, and it didn't really seem like it'd been moved at all, to be frank with you.
Objection, I would like to re-raise my objection to speculation.
Overruled.
Well, Mr. Perez, what did you do after that?
Well, I went to go investigate the bottle. But as I was walking towards it, I was interrupted by a scream. I immediately stopped what I was doing and ran towards the commotion. As I got closer and closer, I noticed that the screams were coming from Harper Martini and Genesis Petria. It looked as though they were fighting. I know I was able to hear a few choice words, but I wasn't sure what exactly they were arguing about.
And Ms. Perez, how did you know this was Genesis Petria?
Well, I'd seen Genesis Petrio actually later that day, the dinner rehearsal, and I'm able to know that that's Genesis, the same woman I saw just a few hours prior.
Right, so you saw Harper Martini, the defendant, and Genesis fighting. What happened after that?
Well, right after the two went their separate ways, I walked over to the spot where they'd been fighting. And that's when I found a crumpled up note. I took a quick picture of it and placed it right back on the ground where I found it.
Would you recognize this note if I were to show it to you today?
Of course.
Your Honor, permission for my co-counsel to share the screen and constructively show opposing counsel on the witness, Exhibit 24. Mr. Perez, what have I just shown you?
This is the picture I took of the note that I had found where Genesis and Martini had been fighting on June 7th.
Do you know who wrote this note?
As a matter of fact, I do. While investigating Peony Estates for over the course of a year, I visited Martini's office several times and became familiar with multiple handwritten notes created by her. Not only am I certain that this is the same exact handwriting, but Martini also put her initials on the bottom right-hand corner of the page, as you can see there.
And does the exhibit appear to be tampered with in any way?
Not at all. That's the photo I took.
Your Honor, at this time, plaintiff moves into evidence what has been remarked as Exhibit 24. Permission to publish to the jury.
I have an
Okay, go ahead.
as to more prejudicial and probative.
Okay. Can you explain your objection, please?
Yes, Your Honor, this witness was not present when the note was written. Therefore, this witness may not testify as to the context or explain the content of this note. Therefore, for this witness to testify to note or for this to be entered into evidence would be more prejudicial than probative.
Mr. Simon, is Mr. Paris going to go into the context in which the letter was written?
No, Your Honor, Mr. Perry is only going to testify as to the content of the notes, which they can reasonably perceive since they're able to read, and simply the ways in which this note related to their investigation on Peony Estates. Nothing about how the note was created or its intent.
Okay, Mr. Nasri, do you still have an objection if Mr. Paris isn't going to go into the context
Yes,
in
Your
which it was written?
Yes, Your Honor, opposing counsel just said the witness will be testifying as to the content of the note. For this witness to go into the content of the note would also speak towards the context of the note as it would speak to the intent of this note. Therefore, my objection still stands.
May I be heard, Your Honor? Your Honor, for the witness to testify as to the content of a written note in plain English, the witness must only be able to read English. And I believe we have already established that. So,
yeah. So as long as Mr. Paris isn't going to speculate into what Ms. Martini meant by anything in this letter, as long as he's just going to read it and I guess talk about how it impacted his investigation, that's fine. It'll be entered into evidence. Mr. Nasri, if at any point you feel like Mr. Paris's testimony is crossing that line, feel free to object.
Yes, Your Honor.
well, Mr. Perez, moving on, did you consider this note in your investigation?
How could I not? In fact, it changed the entire course of my investigation. All those months I've been looking for evidence of pesticide misuse. I never once expected to come across what seems to be a clear-cut bribe.
Why would you think it was a bribe?
Well, as you can see here, Harper demands a stop to the wedding. And that's followed up with an interesting choice of words. Where it previously said, I want, Harper instead writes a more urgent, I need. And this is the same sentence that she's telling Genesis to leave Casey and Martini's lives altogether. And to top it all off, there's a clear offer. $300,000 followed by words that, based on my experience as a journalist, I can only associate with threats and bribes. There's also what I believe to be a deadline, the 7th.
And why did you think this was a deadline?
At the time, I wasn't too certain. But after I placed that note back on the ground, I saw Martini rush back to that very spot, grab the note, and burn it. It was all very peculiar. It also happened to be the 7th of June. So after seeing Martini torch the original copy of the note, I kept out of sight and followed her back to the bottling area.
What happened after you followed Harper Martini back into the bottling area?
Next time I saw her, she grabbed that bottle of car wine that had been sitting by itself and walked out. The entire sequence of events was just so suspicious.
Why would you say that?
You have to understand. During my tours of the winery, I discovered that the bottling station is where they seal and reseal wine bottles. And in that room, lying right next to the bottling station, I found an almost empty canister of pesticides just after Harper left with the bottle.
Did you do anything?
Well, I was focused on the pesticide at that moment next to the bottling station. I lost track of Martini. So I went back to the dinner rehearsal, and that's where I saw the bottle of car wine again.
Where was the bottle?
Well, I saw Martini presenting the bottle to Genesis. I really wanted to speak with Genesis, but with the festivities and everything else going on, I just couldn't find an appropriate time. So I called it a night and headed home.
Right, and what is the next thing you did related to Peony Estates?
The next morning, I showed up for the wedding. And that's when I found out what happened to Genesis. I was able to get my hands on the death certificate and I couldn't believe it. Death by pesticide poisoning. It shouldn't have happened.
What do you mean it should have not happened?
I've been to war zones all over the world. I've seen some truly horrible things, but I've never felt like I could have prevented something horrible from happening. At least until this case. All I can do now is help expose the truth for what it is.
And Mr. Perez, you said you wanted to expose the truth. How are you planning on doing that?
My report, I actually wrote a piece about everything that happened, everything I witnessed, about the bribe I found from Harper, the fighting I witnessed, the empty canister of pesticides next to the bottling station, and how Harper gave that bottle of car wine to Genesis. It's all there. I'm just waiting for this trial to end before I publish a follow-up to the initial story.
Thank you so much for coming to the stand, Mr. Perez. Your Honor, I have no further questions.
Okay, Mr. Nasri, when you're ready, you can proceed with cross-examination.
Mr. Paris, before investigating into Peony Estates, your career wasn't what you would hope it would be, was it?
I wouldn't say that. I was enjoying doing some freelance investigations. I had time to spend with my family, and make those baseball games that I've been missing all those years.
Well, you went from working as a big-time BNN reporter to a small-length freelance journalist, right?
Well, I'm flattered you'd call me a big shot, but yes, that's true. I went to a freelance investigation.
Your leave from BNN wasn't voluntary.
No, as I said on direct, it was the end of the road for both of us, and we parted ways.
Right, you were let go.
Yes.
And you didn't want to be a freelance journalist.
I wouldn't say that. I was enjoying freelance investigation, no camera crew, just my column and I.
Well, you wanted to get back into the investigative journalism business, right?
Well, if the right offer came around, that was not only right for me, but right for my family, I'd have to give it, a little bit of attention and consider it at the least.
Right. But companies weren't hiring then.
You can throw a rock and hit anybody with a journalism degree. So, no, it's a little difficult to get a job nowadays.
And they aren't hiring much now either.
No.
So you started investigating Peony Estates.
Yes, it was one of my freelance investigation stories. I would post a story about every other week to try and keep up.
And you were hoping that if you found something scandalous, it would rejuvenate your career.
Well, yes. We go into these situations looking for stories and trying to expose the truth. So in a way, yes.
And just to be clear, the reporting you did on Peony Estates did help your career.
Yes, it did.
You're currently being considered for a job in investigative journalism with TBD magazine, right?
I believe so. They made an offer. They're just waiting for me to publish my follow-up to this entire story based on my experience today.
Because the editor-in-chief of TBD was so impressed with the lengths you would go to get a story.
Objection, Your Honor. Question calls for speculation.
Yes, Your Honor. Pursuant to Rule 6, a witness may not testify to a matter unless evidence is introduced sufficient to show that the witness has personal knowledge of the matter. Now, it's our contention that the editor-in-chief of TBD said these words to Lonnie Perez, and that's why she would believe that TBD's chief was impressed. Therefore, it's not speculation.
Overruled.
Your Honor, may I be heard briefly?
No.
Now, Mr. Perez, this was because the editor-in-chief of TBD was so impressed with the lengths you would go to get a story, right?
I mean, I believe so. I doubt they'd give me an offer if they weren't a fan of my work product and my tenacity in being able to uncover the truth.
Well, Mr. Perez, let's talk about those links. You first visited Peony Estates in July 2018, right?
Yes, that's correct.
You were on a tour.
No, that was my second visit. Initially, I just went to scope out the property.
Right. But you'd agree with me that during that second visit, you snuck into an employees only section, right?
Yes, I mean, that's the thing with these stories. They never really happen in broad daylight. So, you got to break a few eggs to make an omelet.
And you didn't stop there.
No.
Snuck into Harper Martini's office next.
Yes, that is correct.
You searched through her personal documents.
I didn't find any personal documents, just a few memos between employees, nothing more personal beyond that.
Right, but still you searched through her documents in her office, right?
Yes, that's correct.
And this wasn't your last visit.
No.
In fact, you visit Peony Estates twice a month on the guided tours.
Yeah, I just wanted to keep tabs on the investigation because I didn't really find anything of note during the first few visits. So I'm just trying to keep tabs on the story and see if there were any further developments.
And you'd agree with me, all this was to rejuvenate your journalism career.
No, not entirely.
Well, you'd agree with me, you investigated the story to rejuvenate your career.
Not entirely. I was working on my my column. I'd post a story every week. It's just my job, and to do my due diligence, and follow the story all the way through to the end.
Right. And now I want to focus on all of the time you've spent at Peony Estates. Now, just to be clear, you were at Peony Estates in 2 times, right? More than that, actually.
Oh, and it was quite a few. I was investigating for over the span of a year. I went about 2 months, twice a month. So I'd say I'd been there about a little over 20 times or so.
Right. And in those 20 times, you never saw Harper Martini open the bottle of cacao wine?
No, I did not.
In those 20 times, you never saw Harper Martini pouring pesticides into that wine?
Well, if she did, I would have missed it by just a few minutes while she was in the bottling area.
But you never saw this, correct?
No, of course not.
And in those 20 times, you never saw Harper Martini poison Genesis?
Well, I wouldn't always have my eyes on Harper Martini. Initially, I was investigating, assuming that there was a misuse of pesticides at that location.
But this you didn't see this, though?
No, I did not.
No further questions, Your Honor.
Okay, that's the last. Mr. Paris, thank you for your time. You're excused. That's the last witness for the plaintiff, right?
Yes, Your Honor. And the plaintiff rests its case in chief and is ready to proceed with defense's case in chief.
Okay, defense, call your first witness.
Yes, Your Honor, the defense calls Ms. Harper Martini. Can you please introduce yourself to the members of the jury?
Hi, my name is Harper Martini.
Ms. Martini, where do you live?
I live here in Midlands in Rapid River Valley.
What do you do for a living?
Well, I own and operate my very own Peony Estates winery and bed and breakfast. It's been my life's work, but after what happened with Genesis and the whole pandemic, the winery side of my business has really been the only thing really keeping us afloat.
When did you enter the wine industry?
I've been working in winemaking for the last 32 years, if you can believe it. I've toured wineries all over the world, worked as a winemaker and even a vineyard manager. I spent all that time saving every penny I could to open Peony Estates in 2015.
What do you do at Peony Estates?
I run the business side of things. I handle all the managerial tasks like supply orders, meeting with distributors, managing payroll, marketing, and planning new wine releases, stuff like that.
Do you host events at Peony Estates?
We do, though not so much after Genesis passed. The last event we hosted was actually the rehearsal dinner for Genesis and Casey's wedding.
What's it like hosting a wedding?
It's stressful. I'm usually busy the entire day running around the property, meeting with caterers and event planners and employees, making sure everything runs smoothly. And that's just one part of the business. The other part is the wine production.
Do you handle the wine production at Peony Estates?
No, I love to get my hands dirty and work hands-on with the wine, but as the business grew, I had to step back and focus on the more administrative side of things. While I would love to be able to work on the day-to-day tasks at PME Estates, I entrust those responsibilities to my employees now.
Ms. Martini, I'd like to move on. We've heard a lot about Genesis Petrillo today. Who was he?
Well, he was my soon-to-be son-in-law. We never saw eye to eye about anything really. It seemed like the only common ground we did have was that we both loved Casey.
When did you meet Genesis?
We met back in 2015. Casey would always bring him over to the winery, and a year later they told me they were dating. We never really started off on the right foot though.
Did these problems between you and Genesis persist?
Yeah, over the years we've had our fair share of disagreements and miscommunications, the usual in-law stuff. It was never a secret that we didn't really like one another.
Did you ever do anything to confront Genesis about your feelings?
Well, yeah, being able to see their relationship from the outside, I really didn't think they were a good match. So I knew it would put Casey in an awkward position at times, but I needed to know that she was going to marry someone who would stick around. So I wanted to test Genesis's loyalty.
What do you mean?
Well, I wrote Genesis this note telling him to get out of our lives. The note was a bluff, a big one at that, and I didn't know how else to sell my bluff besides adding some money to see if he really did love my Casey enough to turn it all down.
How much money did you add?
$300,000. Well, a check for $300,000.
Miss Martini, why did you include this check?
Well, I knew I'd be much more comfortable with the idea of them together if I saw an act of devotion with my own eyes. Honestly, I thought Genesis would take the money and leave, but he didn't. And that really changed things for me.
Did you ever make amends?
I did. Well, at least I thought I did.
What did you do?
Well, I had been developing this new blend of wine and I decided to give the first bottle to Genesis. The bottle of wine was named Cara. Casey had named it herself. It had all the same notes that Genesis told the caterer that he loved, and I figured he would love it. At the rehearsal dinner, I brought him up on stage in front of everyone and told him that I had gotten it just for him.
Were you aware at the time that the bottle could have been contaminated?
Absolutely not. Had I known, I would never have let anyone drink it, let alone Genesis. I would have thrown it all away immediately.
Miss Martini, I'm sorry I have to ask, but did you intentionally poison Genesis Petrillo?
No, I would never do such a thing. What happened to Genesis has ruined everything I've worked so hard to build, from my relationship with my only child to my entire life's work. While we had our own issues, Genesis treated Casey perfectly. I know what it's like to have the love of your life taken from you, and I would never do that to my little girl.
Thank you, Miss Martini. Your Honor, I have no further questions.
Cross-examination, Your Honor.
Yep.
Ms. Martini, like you testified on direct examination, Casey Soto is your only child, right?
Yes, she is.
She's everything to you.
Yeah, she is.
But you thought Genesis Petrillo was a bad influence on your daughter.
Yeah, they never really thought they were a good fit together.
In fact, Genesis caused your daughter to end up in the hospital, right?
Yeah, at one point.
And you thought Genesis was trying to take your daughter away from you.
Well, he told me they were going to move to France, if that's what you mean.
Exactly. Genesis told you you would never see your only daughter again.
Yeah, that's what he said. I think he was drunk when he left the voicemail.
But this still made you upset.
Yeah, of course. It's my only daughter.
But that's when you offered Genesis $300,000.
Yeah, like I said before, it was a check for $300,000. I was never actually meant to be cashed. Who has that kind of money just lying around?
Ms. Martini, you wrote the check
Yeah, I wrote the check.
to get him out of your daughter's life.
I wrote it to test his loyalty.
Ms. Martini, you would agree with me that you wrote this all down?
What the note you mean?
The bribe you offered Genesis. You wrote it down, didn't you?
Yes.
And you recognize a copy if I were to show it to you today?
Yes, I would.
Your Honor, let the record reflect that my co-counsel is showing opposing counsel on the witness what has already been entered into evidence as Exhibit 24. Ms. Martini, this is the note you wrote to Genesis, correct?
Yes, it is.
And it included the $300,000.
Yes.
And you wrote, leave Casey, and the enclosed $300,000 is yours.
Yeah, and like I said, he took the check but left the note and stayed with Casey.
You failed your test.
No, my test was to see if he would stick around for my daughter, and he did.
Well, Ms. Martini, just to be clear, you said you have until the 7th, right?
Yeah, the day of their wedding.
And that the day of that exact deadline, Genesis threw the note back at you, right?
Yeah, he did.
But he kept the check.
Yeah, like I said, it was a bluff check.
You would agree with me that that day, June 7th, you actually gave Genesis a bottle of wine.
Yes, I did.
Genesis was the only person at that entire wedding to receive that car of wine.
Yeah, the car wine. Everyone else got Horizon.
The car of wine your winery made.
Yes.
The wine you presented.
Yes.
The wine that Genesis drank.
Yes.
You'd agree with me the next day that Genesis Petrillo was dead, right?
Yeah, sadly he was.
Thank you, Your Honor. I have no further questions.
There's no redirect.
No redirect, Your Honor. I just asked that my witness is excused.
Okay, thank you, Ms. Martini. I guess, Seb, are we doing okay on time? Do you want to call the next witness?
Yeah, we're Blair Osborne is the next witness called.
Okay, great, go ahead.
Yes, Your Honor. May I proceed? Your Honor, may I proceed?
Yep, go ahead.
Please introduce yourself to the jury.
Hello, my name is Blair Osborne.
What do you do for a living, Ms. Osborne?
I'm a wedding planner here in Midlands. If you've ever helped organize a wedding, then you know how stressful they can be. But my job is to help take away a lot of that stress.
How did you come to be involved in today's case?
Well, the owner of Peony Estates, Harper Martini, aka Sweetheart, asked to help me plan her daughter's wedding. It was my job to make sure Casey and Genesis' wedding was picture perfect.
Now, Ms. Osborne, what can you tell us about Peony Estates?
It's just a lovely little winery with a bed and breakfast here in Midlands. It reminds me of the grapes, the sunsets, the warm weather back in California. This is honestly how I've managed to plan countless events at Peony Estates.
And can you tell us where in Peony Estates the wedding receptions are held?
Yes, most of the weddings are held in the reception area. It has a lovely mahogany round table, perfect for wine tastings.
And Ms. Osborne, exactly how familiar are you with the storage shed at Peony Estates?
I'm very, very familiar. I've scoped out every square inch of Peony Estates trying to make rooms for my decorations. So I often find myself having to use the storage shed.
And can you tell us about this storage shed?
Of course. It's atop a 25-foot hill, which is a bit troubling to get to, and this is more hill than I've ever had to hike, and I'm from California.
Do you find this inconvenient?
Yeah, I get new scuffs on my shoes every time I want to fetch a vase from the storage shed. It's super inconvenient.
What is kept in the storage shed?
Well, just the best organza tablecloths and a lovely set of wine glasses. But they also keep wiring, pesticides, cleaning supplies, things like that in there.
Now, I want to talk about the wedding rehearsal on June 7th, 2019. Can you tell us how that day began?
Well, I was finishing up the finer details of the wedding, and Miss Martini was coordinating with the team members and having them prepare the gifts.
Did you ever see Miss Martini take a break?
Yes. During the toast, Harper made this show about giving Genesis this beautiful bottle of wine. I'll admit, this gesture made me tear up a bit.
Now, Ms. Osborne, during your time at Peony Estates, were you made aware of whether or not a bottle of wine was contaminated?
No.
Was it ever brought to your attention that a bottle of wine might be contaminated?
No, of course not.
In all of the times that you spent at Peony Estates, did you ever see Harper Martini grab a bottle of wine and contaminate pesticide?
No.
No further questions, Your Honor.
Okay, Mr. Simon, when you're ready, you can begin with your cross-examination.
Good afternoon, Ms. Osborne. You are testifying on behalf of Harper Martini.
That's right.
You weren't subpoenaed to testify today, were you?
No.
You're here voluntarily
That's right.
because the defendant is like family to you.
I'd say more like business partners, but sure.
Well, exactly. You have worked with Peony Estates for about 4 years, right?
That's right.
You have hosted, what, 80 events at Peony Estates?
Yeah, more or less.
And during that time, no one has ever gotten sick from pesticide poisoning.
Well, not that I know of. Nope.
Let alone die from pesticide poisoning.
Again, not any that I know of, but no.
But you do know about one, right?
Yes, unfortunately.
The wedding of Genesis Patrice.
Yes.
Now let's talk about this wedding that you planned for Genesis and Casey. You worked with both Genesis and the defendant for about 6 months planning, right?
Yep.
And you saw them arguing on multiple occasions.
Yeah, from everything from tablecloths through to like food options. Yeah.
You saw conflicts between the two a little after May 11th of 2019.
Yep, that's right.
That day, you were meeting with them to discuss decoration options.
Yes.
And during this meeting, the defendant played a voicemail from Genesis Patrice.
Yes, I do remember this.
You heard the recording.
Yes.
So you would recognize a transcript of that recording if I were to show it to you today.
Yeah, I would.
Your Honor, permission from my co-counsel to share screen of what has been entered into evidence as Exhibit 24, Exhibit 8. Ms. Osborne, you recognize this transcript, correct?
Yes.
This is the voicemail the defendant played for you.
Yes, it is.
And Ms. Osborne, you heard Genesis tell the defendant, "It is your lucky day. I'm going to Paris after the wedding."
Yes, she did say that.
And when the recording finished, the defendant said something to you.
I think she did.
She said, "One of these days, Genesis will drink the wrong thing and it will kill him."
Yeah, but I have no clue what she meant by that.
Just to clarify, that suggests that the defendant said, "One of these days, Genesis will drink the wrong thing and it will kill her."
Yeah, she said that, but again, have no idea what she meant by it.
Well, let's talk about the day of the wedding rehearsal. You saw Genesis and Harper getting to a disagreement.
Yes.
After that, Casey pulled you aside.
Yeah, I do remember that.
Casey asked you to keep Harper and Genesis far away from each other as possible.
Yeah, she did.
Later that evening, you saw the defendant present Genesis with a bottle of wine.
Yeah, it was a really lovely gesture. Harper made a big show of presenting it, and she even gave a lovely speech.
The defendant, and in that speech, the defendant told Genesis not to drink that wine in front of anyone else.
Yeah, she just wanted the wine to be a special gift.
Just to clarify, that's a yes. The defendant told Genesis not to drink that wine in front of anyone else.
That's right.
And you think you saw Genesis drink it.
I think I did, but I'm not sure.
What you are sure is that you didn't see a single other person drink from that wine.
Again, not sure, but no.
And the next morning, the only person dead was Genesis Petrillo.
Yeah, unfortunately, it was very tragic.
Thank you, Your Honor. I have no further questions.
Okay, any redirect?
No, Your Honor. I asked that the witness may step down.
Okay.
Now, with that, Your Honor, the defense rests its case in chief and is ready to proceed with closing arguments.
Okay, plaintiff, you can proceed with your closing argument when you're ready.
Yes, Your Honor. And just so if everyone wants to turn their thing to speaker view, you're more than welcome to do so at this time. Members of the jury, it is because of the defendant's actions that we have brought a suit for battery. Now, in order to prove battery, we had to show three things, three elements in today's case. First, an act by the defendant. Second, that the defendant intended to cause harm. And third, that Genesis Petrillo died as a result. Now, today, as a plaintiff, we proved to you that the defendant intentionally poisoned the bottle of wine she gave to Mr. Petrillo, and that it killed him as a result. And we had to prove this to you by preponderance of the evidence, or simply that it's more likely than not. Now, members of the jury, both sides already agree that Mr. Petrillo's cause of death was pesticide poisoning. So all we had to prove was that the defendant did it and that the defendant intended to cause harm. And we did exactly that. We proved that she placed pesticide poison in the bottle of car wine because we heard about the evening of June 7th, 2019. Lonnie Perez told you how he saw the defendant sneak into the winery's bottling area, the very place where the bottles were corked and sealed on the very night of the rehearsal dinner. Just moments later, he sees the defendant holding a sole bottle of car wine, which was now sealed. And right at the defendant's feet was an empty canister of bug-off pesticide. Genesis didn't die because of a series of unfortunate events. He died because the defendant poured poison into the bottle of car wine and gave it to him. Which leaves one last element to consider, that the defendant intended to harm Mr. Petrillo. And the defendant told you herself that Casey was her only child, her entire world, the only family she had left. She told you how she blamed Genesis for causing her daughter to end up in the hospital. She saw Genesis as a threat to her daughter's future, and worse, a threat to her life. And then you read a voicemail from Genesis Petrillo. In that trigger, Genesis tells the defendant that he and Casey would be moving halfway across the world forever. Genesis had already caused her daughter to end up in the hospital once before, and the defendant had been there to protect her the first time. But with her daughter halfway across the world, she had no way to protect her, to save her only daughter. She didn't know if the next trip to the hospital would be her daughter's last. But then her nightmare is made worse when Genesis tells the defendant that she would never see Casey again. In that moment, the defendant is presented with a choice. Choose to never see her only daughter again, or choose to never see Genesis again. Now, for the woman who saw her daughter as her entire world, there was only one choice. So she takes action and tries to get rid of Genesis, never to see him again. She tells Genesis, the wedding can't happen. I need you out of our lives. Leave Casey, in the enclosed $300,000 is yours. Otherwise, I will take you out of the picture the hard way. You have until the 7th. Yet Genesis didn't leave, didn't give in to the defendant's threats. And the day of that exact deadline, June 7th, 2019, the defendant in her last effort to protect her only daughter, walks up to Mr. Petrillo and gives him a poisoned bottle of Cara wine. In his final moments of life, when he should have been getting ready for his wedding, he laid alone in a hospital bed. When he should have been waiting at the altar for his bride to walk down the aisle, he was fighting just to get a breath in. When he should have been exchanging vows, placing a ring on his bride's finger, his doctor was calling his time of death. All because the defendant acted in the name of love. But members of the jury, even acts of love have legal boundaries. Hold the defendant liable for her actions. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Aviles. Ms. Phelps, when you're ready.
Yes, Your Honor. No knowledge, no act, not liable. Members of the jury, make no mistake. It's no question that what happened to Genesis Petrillo was a tragedy. But the plaintiff today is taking an accident and calling it battery. The plaintiff had to prove that Miss Martini intentionally poisoned the bottle of wine she gave to Genesis Petrillo, that she did so with the intention of hurting her, and that this caused Genesis Petrillo's death. They had to prove this to you by a preponderance of the evidence. And if you find that the plaintiff is unable to tip the scale in their favor, you cannot hold Miss Martini liable. And members of the jury, it's clear the plaintiff has failed. Because with no knowledge and no act, Miss Martini is not liable. Let's talk about the first point, no knowledge. The plaintiff failed to present you with any evidence to prove that my client knew the Cara bottle was poisoned. What you heard was my client didn't handle the daily management of the estate. She didn't handle the grapes or the pesticides. And why does this matter? Because it shows my client had no knowledge about the bottle. They also had to prove an act, and they didn't, because they couldn't present any evidence of the bottle being tampered with. So for this to be true, for the plaintiff to prove their act, they had to prove that Miss Martini went out of her way to open up the bottle of wine, pour in a lethal dose of pesticide, seal it back up perfectly, and gift it to Genesis Petrillo. Members of the jury, Miss Martini didn't even have the opportunity to poison the bottle on June 7th. You heard how on the day of the wedding rehearsal, Miss Martini was never alone. She was coordinating with the caterers, the event planners, the flower company, talking to guests. You heard Blair Osborne tell you people like her were with Harper all day, and they didn't see her poisoning the wine bottle. There were over 100 people there. How did no one see Miss Martini place pesticides in the wine? Members of the jury, it's because it didn't happen. And with no eyewitnesses, what other evidence could the plaintiff have brought you to prove my client committed an act? Video footage, audio recordings, even a photo? They couldn't bring that either. And members of the jury, while Miss Martini and Genesis may not have liked each other, Harper has never threatened Genesis with any violence like the plaintiff's battery charge is alleging. There was never any harm in the past, never any violent showings from Harper, no criminal record, not one instance of prior aggression. Yet they want you to believe that Harper would ruin everything as an act of love. Members of the jury, Miss Martini chose her daughter's happiness above her own and knew she had to bridge the gap between her and her son-in-law. If Miss Martini knew the wine was poisoned, why would she make such a spectacle giving the wine to Genesis? With every pair of eyes on her, why would Miss Martini give her a poisoned bottle of wine? Members of the jury, she wouldn't. Because Miss Martini couldn't have known that the wedding present meant to bury the hatchet would put her on trial. Members of the jury, with no act, there's not much else to prove. We've sat through hours of testimony only to finish right where we started. The plaintiff couldn't show you an act by Miss Martini. They want you to assume, to make a leap of faith in a court of law without giving you all the facts. They tried to prove their charge of battery, and they failed. The law is clear. Find Miss Martini not liable. Thank you.
Okay, great job. That concludes our trial. Nice job, everybody. I'll hand it off to Seb.
Which I will pass it on to Sabrina.
Well, awesome job, everybody. That was phenomenal. I enjoyed watching it. I can't even imagine the process that went through to finding every single, like, answered every question, and that whole process. I'm sure it was long. But before we get into our Q&A session, for everybody that's here, I have our New York Times ambassador, Daniela Gonzalez. She's going to talk to everybody about the giveaway. Everybody make sure you stick around to hear what she has to say, and also stick around till the end of our Q&A, because I will be announcing the winners after our Q&A portion. So Danny, go ahead, you have the floor.
Hi guys, I just wanted to say thank you so much to Panther Mock Trial for such an amazing event, and for all of you guys for being here. It means a lot to me and Sabrina and the entire Panther Mock Trial team. I just wanted to let you guys know that since you're here and you came to the event and supported all these great organizations, I just want to let you guys know that it's not too late to join the giveaway. There's going to be 3 winners, and you're more than welcome to register right now during the Q&A session. And there's 3 different tiers. First place will win a $50 Amazon gift card. Second place will win a $25 gift card and an SGA shirt. And third place will win a $10 Starbucks gift card and an SGA tumbler. I'm going to drop the link in the chat right now. There's a couple of people here who already did the steps on the giveaway. They're really quick and really easy. It should take you literally like 2 minutes. But to Dunieski, Matias, Andy, and Cassandra, you guys are covered. The only person who has, I have their RSVP form, but not the second part, which is subscribing to your free New York Times subscription for being an FIU student. Cassandra, I don't have yours. I don't know if you just forgot to attach it or something, but please be sure to do that so that we can register you. But everybody else, thank you so much for being here. I'm gonna drop the giveaway details in the chat, and thanks for coming out.
All right, so yeah, that was Daniela, our New York Times ambassador. Be sure that even if you're not joining the giveaway, which I'm not sure why you would, I think they're great prizes. So if you guys want to win one, please be sure to, fill out in the SGA Instagram. There is a survey in our link. Just go ahead and attach whatever documentation that we're asking for. It's very simple. It should take you no more than maybe 2 to 3 minutes. And yeah, so even if you're not doing the giveaway, please subscribe to our New York Times newsletter. It is amazing. It is a great resource to all students. And yeah, with that said, I think we can start our Q&A session. If you have a question for any one of the Panther Mock Trial team members or myself, you can use the raise your hand. You can put it in the chat, whichever works. I just wanted to actually ask a question on my behalf to start things off. How was the process of making this trial? How did it go? How long did it take? Just tell me all of it.
Yeah, so it's definitely a long process. It actually so we get the case usually in August or September, and we're working on it throughout the entire year. So what you guys saw was a condensed version of the case. The case is actually extremely long. And so that's what makes it super interesting, in my opinion, because you got to see 2 sides of a story, but in reality, there's so many different theories that you can make as a team, given a case packet, with the information you're given. And so throughout the entire year, you're drafting ideas for how you want to present your case. And so what you guys saw also was a little bit more scripted, only because we compete together. So like we've seen all of each other's pieces already. But I would say for the most part, it's not that scripted. Like only a few pieces are scripted because we know those in advance. But most of the things you're competing against a different team from out of the state. So all sorts of things happen throughout trial. And so like you plan and plan and plan, and then everything gets thrown out of the window the second trial starts. So it's definitely like I love the process. I've been doing it for 6-7 years now. So for me, it's a lot of fun.
That's amazing. I mean, I used to do, well, not competitive, but I used to actually do some mock trial in high school. It was my favorite thing ever. We went to like the Broward County courthouse and everything, and it was a fun experience. So I'm with you on that, on enjoying it. Alexis, I really want to hear from your side of things. I'm so sorry. My roommate just ran off. What is your side of things like when it comes to doing mock trial? Like, how are you enjoying it, and how is the process for you?
Yeah, I haven't been doing it as long as Sebastian, unfortunately. I wish I had done it like earlier. So this is my third and last year for undergrad mock. So it's been a lot of fun. I think I found it freshman year, like the club. So it really was like a huge part of my college experience. And I think that learning how to like analyze a case every year, something different, does kind of keep you like fresh and kind of sharp. Like, I think even if I'm not doing this next year, I'm still going to want to read like real cases and stuff like that, just to, it helps you like start thinking about like potential arguments, stuff like that, that you can use later when I'm an attorney, that I want to do something, I want to do trial like this. As far as like actually developing like our content, we spend a lot of time together, and we have our coaching staff, and they're local attorneys, and now we have some returning alum, and it's just a lot of fun helping us like understand the rules. Like I don't know if objections seem like really confusing and stuff sometimes. It's like it becomes second nature from how much you practice it over the year.
I mean, that's awesome. I I give you guys so much credit for something like this, like balancing both college classes and doing this organization. I'm sure that, at times it's extremely stressful. For any of the other teammates, like how do you guys feel that you can balance both the organization and classes? Do you think that it's a challenge, or do you find that there is a balance between both?
It's definitely a challenge, especially when you add work on top of it. But honestly, the way I think of it is kind of you're just living for the next competition, because obviously like the work leading up to it is just painstaking. But once you get like a glimpse of competition, it's like the most amazing experience. It's also exciting, developing camaraderie with the teammates and things like that. And yeah.
And I will say, to add on to what Max just said, we do normally travel for competition. So like this year, unfortunately, it was over Zoom because of COVID, but like normally we're traveling all over this country, just competing against different schools. And so that's definitely like a lot of fun, is being able to travel with your teammates.
I mean, that sounds awesome. I would love to travel like in that aspect. Is there anywhere that you guys have traveled that you've really enjoyed?
My favorite was New York.
Yeah.
That was 100% my favorite.
We did, I think for 2 years, it would have been the third year this year. We went to New York City, we went to DC last year, Atlanta, that's like a pretty frequent one.
South Carolina.
And I'd never been to like half of these places, so it was very nice to go for the first time with my friends.
I mean, that's so cool. I've never been to New York. I've always wanted to go, so I'm super jealous of many things right now. But that's really cool. I have one more. Oh yeah, my other question. I assume that because all of you are on this team that you do want to actually practice law. Are any of you already applying to law school? You already got into law school, or anything like that?
Yeah, so I think this year we have the smallest number of outgoing seniors. I think it's just me and 2 others. So I'm taking a gap year. Like right before this call, I was studying for the LSAT. But after we get off, I gotta go study again. But I think if not everyone here,
I know
wants to be
Leah
an
is not
attorney.
interested in
Yeah.
going to law school. Because I will say, like, there's a good chunk of people that like do mock trial that do not want to go to law school, or do mock trial and learn that they do not like law. That they love competing, but they don't like the law. And so like, I think for like a lot of people, it's a great opportunity to see like whether or not you kind of enjoy it and give you like a glimpse into the career. Because you get to like Alexis mentioned earlier, we have like coaches that are attorneys. And so you get to speak with them like on a day-to-day basis, asking them about their job, then telling you like, you know, what it's like to actually be an attorney, giving you glimpses. And so throughout that whole process, it's very eye-opening of whether or not you like this at all. And so, you know, a lot of people love to compete, but just don't like the law. And for those people, I think that's great that it's a learning opportunity for them.
It's also more than just law. You can get a lot more than, you know, legal nuances from mock trial, anywhere from, you know, basic theater to, you know, writing skills to, you know, speech, just a bunch of different skills that you pick up a mock trial that don't necessarily relate to law. And even if you're not going to law school, it can definitely help you in the future if, you know, if you're planning a career path, you know, that has anything to do with those traits.
Exactly.
Yeah, I mean, that's actually like for me, I have been wondering if I really want law school and if I really want to practice law. So to sit here and be a part of this event with all of you, it was really refreshing and really cool to see, because I'm questioning if I want to go to law school or if I want to go to graduate school and do toxicology. So I'm bouncing between the two. So it was really, really nice having you guys here for the event, and, you know, for giving me an even more insight into being excited for possibly going to law school. I don't know if it's a for sure thing, but I definitely am piqued that interest, and, you know, who knows, maybe I'll look at joining the team.
I will say, if that is what you're interested in, you would have enjoyed this past case, because we didn't call the witness, but there's actually there's two witnesses that are toxicology experts.
Oh my God. That's
So like you literally get up there and pretend like you know what you're doing.
Yeah, you have to pretend you're a doctor half the time.
Yeah. And like it's a
It
lot
is
of
a
fun.
lot better.
It's like you literally have to learn how to be a doctor, because like you can try to fake it, but like the second the other team starts asking you questions, you're going to be up there like, I don't know. And so like I loved learning like about, there's always experts in every case, and there's always a lot of background information, whether it's like a police officer, a toxicologist, a forensic examiner, like something like that. There's always an expert. And those are definitely the most fun witnesses to play.
Yeah, and following on that, it's a lot better if you're not pretending, like you, if you actually understand toxicology, because you're gonna get up there in front of, you know, a bunch of lawyer wannabes that probably, you know,
And
research
lawyers.
toxicology. Yeah, and lawyers too. That probably research toxicology like for the past month or two, and you actually know this thing. So when you're being crossed, you can, you know, you can actually showcase all the things you've learned so far, which is actually pretty cool, because it kind of flips the narrative.
Sorry to interrupt, but it also gives you the chance to pull out some random like scientific terms, and like usually the other person doesn't expect you to know this, or doesn't have like has no clue what you're talking about. So the more scientific terms you pull out, the more you confuse them, and it's pretty fun.
I mean, like if I had known, if I would have known, I would have definitely been a part of this, and I would have hands down took that role, because that's so cool. I just wanted to add really quick. I know we're in the Q&A, but so we're going to announce the winners for the giveaway after the event is over. We're going to announce them on our Instagram for SGA. That is because for anybody who's in the Zoom who wants to be a part of the giveaway, we can still give them some more time. Anybody who's on the Panther Mock Trial team, you're more than welcome to be a part of the giveaway. You can, you know, put your name in and everything. So just be sure to do that for anybody who's still here, who's interested. That we'll be announcing it later today, so you guys have a little bit more time. I think we have a couple questions in the chat.
Yeah. I saw
Yeah.
Sebastian answered the first one. Do you want to elaborate a little?
Yeah, so Andy asked in the chat whether we go visit high schools. So ordinarily, we're usually focused on competing. So like throughout the competitive season, we don't normally go and like help out other schools just because like we don't have it that much time. And like you mentioned, we're constantly balancing things out, but like usually individual members are always willing to go talk. I know I've gone specifically to a couple of high schools to teach them rules of evidence and things like that. So I'm always willing. I love mock trial. I'm a nerd with it. So like I'm always willing to go talk about it. So I put my email in the chat. Like if you guys have any questions or anything like that, you guys can always reach out to me and I'll answer you. Just give me about a day or two to see it. Or you can message us on Instagram. We also answer that way. So yeah, so that's to answer Andy's question. And then for Cass, I hope I'm pronouncing that correctly. It's when will we be having tryouts? So we're still figuring the exact dates for tryouts, just because they're going to be held over summer. There's going to be some, we're planning a summer series, I guess you could say, where you go and you learn about how to compete, like about mock trial, about the law in general, where we're hopefully going to have attorneys come and speak to you guys and teach you about the nuances of trial and how to, what to expect from a trial and things like that. And then following that, we will be having tryouts. That'll be later this summer. I do know we're going to be having an info session, a brief like info session on Zoom.
If anyone wants to take a picture of it.
Yes.
Yeah.
So yeah, if you guys want to take a picture of this, please do. This is going to be our first info session where we're just going to give you the upcoming information about how to try out, what to expect from tryouts, any questions you might have about competing, what it's like to compete, anything like that. Or if you just have a question about mock trial or a rule of evidence, you're more than welcome to join as well. So whatever you guys want, this will be the info session that we're going to be hosting.
Yeah, and we'll be updating on, especially I think we use Instagram the most, just in case we change any events or time or add any to our calendar throughout the summer. Obviously, that's when we do the most recruitment and like orientations and stuff like that. So I'll keep this up for a sec, but yeah.
Yeah, I mean, this is great information. And Alexis, you mentioned that you had some slides. I assume this was one of the slides that you wanted to show to everyone in the Zoom?
Yeah, I had a few and I think we've answered or at least talked about most of it. Let me go back. I wanted to talk about like the main points of why people join mock trial, but I think my members did it pretty well without knowing we were going to talk about it. But I think the biggest selling points are, it's the public speaking aspect, it's the argumentation aspect, and you're critically thinking and you're writing. It's legal writing, but it's also so helpful in just any sort of analytical writing. And then specific to a team of mock trial, you're going to be learning the legal procedures, how to be in a courtroom, how to address attorneys, judges, witnesses. You're learning the etiquette, the professionalism, and any of the photos were always all suited up, clean cut, just because, I mean, if you look good, you sound good, you're doing a good job defending your client. And then teamwork is a big thing for us. We're a really close knit team at FIU. So those are the big selling points, I think. And then I think I had one more, and it was just what Sebastian also went into, the summer series or summer session that we'll be doing. It's most likely, I want to say July, most likely. And then tentatively our tryouts are held by the coaching staff in August.
Yeah, and just so everyone knows, like also the reason why we love to host the summer series is because like I know for like a lot of incoming students who are interested in the law, it's hard to get that resume builder to just get started on your resume. And so like this is a very easy thing to be able to put on your resume. Like, you learn the ins and outs of trial and trial advocacy, which just looks good to a recruiter at any law firm, just so that they know, oh, he or she has a little bit of experience in this, or knows what I'm talking about when I say I have a deposition or I have a cross or something like that.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, and then that was the contact information for us, and that's what we'll be updating with tryout dates and stuff like that.
Awesome. Well, I asked all my questions. So if there's anybody in the Zoom who has any other questions, feel free to ask. If not, then we can wrap up the event. So I guess I can give another minute to let anyone ponder if they have any questions. Yeah, so Alexis, I know that you said you're taking a gap year before you go to law school. Oh my gosh, the Alexa again. I'm so sorry.
Oh
I keep
yeah,
on looking up at mine,
I
trying to
had to
make
turn
sure
my
it doesn't
Alexa off.
trigger.
I had to turn my Alexa off at home because of this team and Alexis.
Yeah,
Yeah, that's just what I do.
yeah, I'm gonna need to start doing that. Well, as my question was progressing, for law school, what school interests you most? Like, what's your dream law school?
My dream, like reaching, is UCLA because I want to do entertainment law. So I want to go way over there and live out the California dream. But I'd like to stay somewhere over here too, I don't know, like finding the area of law that you want to do is harder than finding out if you want to do law. So I think it's still up in the air. I don't know. I got a whole year to figure it out.
Yeah, that's true. I completely agree with you. That is like one things that was on my mind about law school was now I have to figure out where I want to live because if I go to
Mhm.
one state, I have to make sure I understand everything in that state in terms of procedure
Yeah.
and everything. So, yeah. I mean, good luck to you for that 1 year. I hope that you find your answer.
Thank you.
You're
I will say, just for Sabrina to like say something you just mentioned that like I learned from my coaches actually was like, if you go out of state to like a different state and then you want to practice, let's say you go to like New York, right? You go to NYU, you graduate from NYU with a law degree and you want to practice in Florida. A lot of the times, companies will hire you and pay for you to like take the bar and study for the bar in the state you want to practice in. So I do know like a lot of law firms do that just because like they know like not everyone goes where they want to practice. And like from what my coaches have explained to us is like a lot of it is them like in law school, you don't really learn how to take the bar, you just learn the law. And so like it's your job to study for the bar afterwards, unfortunately. So yeah, just a little tip that my coaches gave us.
Gotcha. Well, thank you for that tip. I appreciate it. Yeah, I mean, does anybody else have any questions? I think we're good. I don't see anything in the chat.
No, I think that was pretty much it. It was Cass's question and Andy's question.
Okay, awesome. So again, everybody, thank you so much for being here. Thank you to Panther Mock Trial for being on this journey with me to bring this event to everybody. It was an amazing experience. I'm super, super grateful to have all of you here with me. Like I mentioned before, that we're gonna do our announcement for the giveaway winners later today. And yeah, I hope everybody has an amazing rest of their day. Again, thank you to everybody for your time, and I appreciate everybody's participation and attendance today. So thank you. It means a lot from the bottom of my heart.
Thank you for organizing it and for inviting us. And thank you to everyone for sticking around and listening to us pretend to be lawyers for a few hours. It was a lot of fun, and have a good day.
All right. Thank you.
All right. Bye, everybody. Thank you.
Bye.
Thank you.
Bruh.
Oh my God, that was so weird.
Okay, wait, hold on.